Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything. Well, I won't say it like Eddie Murphy said it in, that movie. Uh, yes, good morning, my neighbors. Well, I won't say it that way. How are you? You know how we say it on the show. Aha, this is the space where we come in to lean on one another's experience to forge a positive path. I love it each time I come into this space. How are you? The year is still young, I know, as in Happy New Year, saying it is in order, is it not? So I'm going to say it to you again. Happy New Year. Yes, I'm back. Did we ever leave? Ah, we didn't. So, what are we going to be doing today? Well, I have somebody interesting. The Word Cafe is all about positivity, good vibes, words and what is going on around us, how to make the best of it. And I have someone today on the show who is all about speaking, communicating in a strategic manner. Don't worry, when she comes on, you will understand what I mean. And she's here today to do her thing with us within the show. Her name is Ivy Clem. I got to meet her some years ago. Yes, she did one or two things for me with respect to my book, Amazing, when I launched my second book. Yes, that's the color of words. She came on and she did her thing. Enough of my talking. I know you want to see her face and you want to hear her voice. So I'm going to bring her on now. Where is she? And there she is. Hello, Ivy.
Hi, hi.
Welcome. How are
Hi.
you?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Such a pleasure to be on the Word Cafe.
The
I
pleasure is all
recall that,
mine.
yeah, we had a nice cafe meeting the other time where we had tea,
Yes,
but this time it's online and we're at the Word Cafe. So let me see how this one is going to be different from, a real
amazing.
life. If I had known, I would have made my cup of tea or coffee, but I forgot to do that.
Don't worry, there will be another time. There will be another time. Thank you for coming. Was it like at your end, as in the weather and everything, work and all of that?
But I love the weather. The weather is really it's nice over here. It's still a bit of Hamatan breeze.
Okay.
I'm in Abuja, Nigeria, so there's a bit of Hamatan breeze. It is not like what the folks in the US and the Europe are facing right now in terms of the chill.
Hmm.
Um, so all the Nigerians that have jackpot, it's time for you to come back home. The weather is much better here than outside the country right now. Nice
At
weather.
this at this time, we're going to say that word. I know envy you.
Because it's so cold out there, right? It's minus
Yeah, yeah,
just 20, minus 22, minus 26.
yeah. But it will. I mean,
Can't
it's
tell
a
you that.
phase. Yeah, it's a phase. It will pass, and we will. We're resilient people. We will overcome. We'll become stronger, better, wiser. So let's get to meet this wonderful personality called Ivy Clem. Who is she?
Oh, wow. So, well, Ivy is a communications expert. I've been doing this for 20 something odd years now. I've
Hmm.
always loved communication. So, Ivy is someone who is a student of communications and has
Okay.
also had the opportunity to teach on different aspects of communications. I've had the
All right.
opportunity to be involved in the media quite extensively and at the highest levels in Nigeria as a
Okay.
news anchor. So I've always
Hmm.
been I was one of those people. I read mass communications in my degree. That was what I wanted to do. That's what I
Okay.
worked towards doing, and it was very fulfilling for me to do mass communications in my first degree at Benue State
Hmm.
University because I'm from Benue
Right.
State. And
Okay.
I recall the people said, "Oh, go do your masters, go do something else immediately after I finish school." And I was like, "No, I want to go into the industry and start working," which I did. I went to Lagos
Mm.
because that's where all the media jobs were at the time. At the time, the federal government had just given broadcast licenses to private organizations. So you had the AIT, you had the Minad Broadcast International, you had Channels
Yeah.
Television, you had DBN.
Hmm.
I think there were like five of them, the pioneers when Babangida, under the administration of Babangida, gave out private broadcast licenses. So I started working at Mirage Broadcast International very quickly, and I've always been in communication. So it's something that I've
Okay.
always loved and something that I'm still doing, and I'm very, very happy to be doing it. Yeah,
Uh, I mean, 20 years in that space is enough to
yeah.
like write a whole book, you know,
Or books,
on the
right?
subject. Yeah, yeah, 20 years because you captured it so well looking at when the private uh, communication outfit started springing up exactly that time. And I mean, I remember when AIT, then television in Nigeria used to be a 4 o'clock and a 9 o'clock thing,
Absolutely.
4 p.m. and 9 p.m. But after that period, when the licenses started coming in, Silverbird and the rest of them, we started having this cable TV mentality come in where you have television round the clock. And all of a
24
sudden,
hours.
yeah, the possibilities were endless and names and started springing up here and there. Then I think for channels it was John Momo, and he started channels. Then AIT, that's what was his name now of blessed memory, he's passed now. He started
Don't look at
AIT. Yes,
Chief.
High Chief Dr. C. Yeah, he started. Yeah, he started AIT and all of that. So it changed the landscape of communication in Nigeria. I can attest to that. But now let us look at it from your eye, as in from Ivy Clem's perspective. How did it change it? Can you, from your own perspective, how did it change it?
Well, I think you put it really succinctly. I mean, truly, we only had the major broadcaster in Nigeria, which the Nigerian Television Authority. They
Mm-hmm.
did a great job, but like you mentioned, they started at 4 o'clock and it ended, say maybe 10 or at most midnight. I
Yeah,
recall that when we had the seasons, maybe like Easter or Christmas, you would have to wait up so you could watch that good old Jesus Christ of Nazareth movie, isn't it? And then
movies.
they would do it in,
Yeah,
in parts.
yeah.
So all of our entertainment was with the broadcaster, with the national broadcaster at the time, and they did a good job. I recall that they had so many programs. If you recall, you can remember Kokru at Dawn. You can
Crocodile.
remember they had Things
House
Fall
number
Apart. They had
house number
series. Oh,
house number 13, Barcy and Company, and the rest
absolutely.
of
I
them.
remember Sesame Street. Everybody watched Sesame Street religiously because that was your form of entertainment, and that taught us good
Entertainment,
English and
exactly.
all of that. And so it was a time of, I call it a time of maybe innocence. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
every parent would wait up until the network news. In fact, when the network news started with that theme song, that was when you knew as a child that you needed to go sleep because
Mm-hmm.
I mean the adults were watching television and all. But
Yeah.
with the coming in of the other players, the private players, if you recall, like you mentioned, there was a lot of excitement. There was something new to watch. You had then we
Mm-hmm.
went to 24, and that was also the time cable television, just like you mentioned, had a surge. Everybody was watching cable news network, CNN, for the first time, and you could watch the news on replay every
On
hour.
replay.
That was
Yeah.
unheard of at the time. And now that is standard. You have the news on the hour for most
Mm-hmm.
stations. That's standard. But then it was new, it was fresh, and it was just an exciting time. Different kinds of programming. So the different stations also had their personalities. They had segments where you could watch entertainment, you could watch news, you could watch
Mm-hmm.
sports, you could watch all kinds of things. So it was an enthralling time for people because they had so many options on what to watch. There were
Mm.
some TV stations that tried to center on entertainment, and so you just had a lot more choice. And I recall then they now said all of them were on standard definition. Then it was at that point in time they said we're going to move to HD, and then there
Mm.
was the transition, if you can recall, from standard definition to HD.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, we had the Chogum games. We could do it live.
Yeah.
That was under Obasanjo. Yeah, we had the Chogum games. We had the stadium brand new. So it was a time of freshness, of innovation in the media space. That was the time we had even the super. Remember, DSTV had
Mm-hmm.
all the licenses to play football,
Yeah.
and the federal government with some of the private television stations stepped in and said no, they had to break that monopoly, which is why
Yeah.
some of the stations can, air the Premier League. So it was a time of change in the broadcast industry, just to be like other countries, and I think it was quite successful. It gave a lot more choice, gave a lot more innovation in the field, just made it really, really interesting. So
Yeah.
that's what I recall. Through my own eyes, it was just a time. I mean, we can never go back to the way it
It
used to
was.
be.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now there's so much. But even now, the traditional TV, it's another time of change, and
Yeah.
another time of change because of, even though the internet was there, maybe the internet has been there for like a few 15, you know, at least 15 years now, as in really, really. But at least in the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years,
Mm.
I hear, I've seen that a lot of people do not even rely on traditional television anymore for any kind of news, entertainment, or sports.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Basically,
online.
yeah, basically, if you look at it from what you just said now, I look at my children, they don't watch DSTV anymore.
Yeah,
Honestly, they don't. What I see them do now is more of YouTubing. You see them,
yeah,
in one day I had to like break into their own space. It's like, why aren't you guys watching like Cartoon Network and all of that? They just looked at me with this eye of, that's a cake now. It's boring. Those things don't excite them anymore. Rather, they want to see Mr. Beast. There's this guy, the highest whatever YouTuber in the world. His name is Mr. Beast. I didn't even know until they told me, because that they were watching Mr. Beast. In my mind, I was like, Mr. Beast sounds like one, unfriendly, whatever. But it's a guy who goes around doing stuffs, and he has gathered so much following and all that. They move from Mr. Beast, they go to other things. So it's like the traditional TV, which we are used to, like DSTV and all of that. Honestly, it's becoming obsolete. What is now holding sway for them, the millennials, or the what I call them before millennials now. I don't know if the word will come again later, is YouTubing on the internet. They're surfing the web, they're watching YouTube. So the truth is it has changed. And I think we need to also find a way of reaching them now, as in reaching them with our own, should I say, services, products, and all of that. So it has changed. Now, it brings me to this question about strategy, because you're big on that when it comes to communication. You call yourself a strategic communication expert. Why should I be strategic in my form of communicating?
well, that's a really, really, really good question. So you just mentioned that there has been change and evolution, and that was born out of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, how am I going to reach younger people
Mm-hmm.
in bite-sized content in a way
Yeah.
that they will understand? And
Yeah.
based on that strategy, they have used, just like you mentioned, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, smaller form videos,
Mm-hmm.
very little words, short form videos, um, a lot of captions and catchy, nobody's sitting down watching 30 minutes of programming, 45 minutes of programming, 60 minutes of programming, because they've found out that the attention span of people has kind of, reduced. So that is a
Obviously.
strategy. How are we going to keep people coming to us? And they have had to evolve. So that is
Mm-hmm.
simply why strategic communications is absolutely important, because the markets continue to change and you have to keep on having different kinds of products to be able to keep your clients or to keep your partners or to keep your stakeholders involved and engaged. So
Yeah.
that is why you have to be strategic. You have to think about it from point A up until point Z, rather than just, getting different components and jumbling it all up. No, you have to look
Mm-hmm.
at it in a frame and decide, okay,
Okay.
what is it that I'm trying to do? What are
Yeah.
my objectives?
Yeah.
Who is the audience that I want to engage? What is my strategy? What am I going to do? How am I going to implement? How am I going to execute? And how am I going to score? So that is the importance of strategic communications. It's actually not just haphazard. You think
Mm-hmm.
it through and then you
Mm-hmm.
deploy your means or whatever it is that you want. So it's essential, because the world is constantly changing and
Yeah.
evolving.
Yeah.
And you, as an individual or a person or as an organization, you have to keep up with the times.
Mm-hmm.
And to do that, you have to have a strategy.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to read out something for you I saw today, and I hope I can call it up. It blew my mind, and I was like, okay, when I come on with Ivy, I'm going to read it with her. Just give me a minute. Let me call it up. I was like, you don't say. This was a conversation between Warren Buffett and his friend. Just give me a minute. All right, I think I've seen it. So this is, hold on. Where are you? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay. From Same as Ever is a book by Morgan Housel. He said, I once had lunch with a guy who's close to Warren Buffett. This guy, we will call him Jim, not his real name. Hope you can hear me. Hello, Ivy?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
All right. Okay. Not his real name. No, he was driving around Omaha, Nebraska with Buffett in late 2009. The global economy was crippled at this point, and Omaha was no exception. Stores were closed, businesses were boarded up. Jim said to Warren, Jim, do you know what the best selling candy bar was in 1962? No, Jim said. Snickers, said Warren. He went on, and do you know what the best selling candy bar is today? No, said Jim. Snickers, Warren said. Then silence. That was the end of the conversation. Changes capture our attention because it's surprising and exciting, but the behavior that never change are history most powerful lessons because they preview what to expect in the future. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, sneakers in 1962, and over how many years sneakers is still relevant. Then there's something these guys are doing that is, they are very strategic. And I want to believe there was a way they were communicating their product to their clients or to the market that kept them afloat and relevant. I read this and I want you to respond to it with respect to those of us who plan for the year. We have vision boards, we have what do you call it, goals and all that. How do you think, for even as small as an individual or as big as an organization, how best do you think we can communicate this in the midst of all the change or changes we're seeing before us today?
Communicate like Snickers staying power and
Hmm.
how we can utilize that maybe in our own brands or how we want to present ourselves,
Exactly.
perhaps. Yeah, so I'd like to say, I mean, that's such a great story from the excerpt of what you read with Warren Buffett and the example of Snickers.
Yeah.
I mean, but in those days, I mean, there are brands that you can mention like that, that they have staying power just by staying the way they have always been, because people have that legacy aspect of their lives as well. They want
Hmm.
something that is trustworthy, something
Yeah.
that doesn't change with time. And people have that, when it comes to like some products that have such a defined look and feel and taste.
Hmm.
So, so Snickers, yes. You can also look at a brand like Coca-Cola. Once Coca-Cola was established, you're not changing anything. Anybody who is a Coca-Cola, ardent Coca-Cola fan like I am,
Hmm.
just give me original Coke. I don't want it in different flavors. Don't innovate. Just give me my Coca-Cola. In fact, one of the best things people do when they want to give me a diet Coke, I'm like, what the hell? No, just give me good old-fashioned Coke.
Okay.
So there are some brands that they thrive and they excel on being how they are.
Mm.
Um, because people want it, it's comfort, it's nostalgia, it's
Hmm.
this is how you want it. You don't want it any
Yeah.
other way. You
Mm.
would feel that if that changes, I mean, that's a bit too much change. So some brands are like that, but not all. Um, and I mean, just think of it, how you used to like certain goods, chocolates, or when you were growing up, it brings you that sense of nostalgia that even
Yeah.
when you're at it grown, it still tastes the same. So it brings you comfort, it brings you warmth, you have the
Yeah.
memories of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I would say about those sorts. But not all brands are. Some brands need innovation, just like we mentioned the broadcast sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is one industry that has had to innovate and change, or tech as we experience it and as we know it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
for individuals, you have to understand what is your value proposition. What is it that you want to communicate? Do
Mm.
you want to be seen as robust and young and innovative, or do you want to be seen as a legacy person, someone who is authoritative, someone who is formal, someone who is more nostalgia based? And you then think about speaking with the strategic communications expert or someone in communications or branding and working it back so that you can be that brand and you can
Mm.
continue to do those things. So
Yeah.
yes, there are many nostalgia brands that still do well.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned Snickers, like I mentioned Coca-Cola. I'm sure that you can think about some of a few others. I can think of a few others, but I'm not sure that
Mhm.
they're paying you in advertisement, so I'm not going to call any names. We can think of some nostalgia brands that we don't want them to change.
Yeah.
And it's also something that we can share with our children. They may do a few tweaks, but they
Hmm.
don't shift too much because of the nostalgia of that particular brand.
Yeah.
And you find out that those particular brands are first in class. So, for instance, when people think about chocolate, they'll say, okay, Snickers, go get me a Snickers bar, even
Yeah.
though it may be another brand or whatever it is, but it's usually first in class. That's what takes in the minds of people.
Yeah.
So yes, beverages, there's soda, but everybody will say, I need Coca-Cola, for instance, or whatever it
Yeah.
is, or
Yeah.
Nigeria, every form of seasoning is Maggie,
Maggie.
even though, I mean, there's so many other, but it has now become a first in class. So some brands have the opportunity to be in that niche, and
Hmm.
generally they stay the same. They don't need to change or innovate because if they do, then they will lose market share.
Listening to you now based on the nostalgic or nostalgia brings to memory, like, there's this experience that we all encountered, with this particular product, and it stays with us. So each time we get back to that product or the class of product, what comes to our mind is that particular name. Just like you said, in Nigeria, when you say "get me Maggie," let me put it the way we call it in our, pidgin English. What comes to our mind is Maggie, not knowing that hello is a seasoning. We have the others, no, and what have you. But that thing just stays with us. So that experience. Recently, I've been seeing those who were born, say, in the early 60s, late 70s, early 80s. You see this, they're kind of, they want to get back to that experience growing up. So the historical things, they just like television, the way it was, the tube TV, and the product they dealt with and all that. And somehow the children of this generations kind of see their parents wanting to get to those things, and somehow the children too want to, like, let me understand why mommy and daddy are like always going to that, and they also want to have that experience. That's what I hear from what you're saying. So more or less, like, some of these people, I mean, some of these products or people behind this product come to read this psychology, and it's just see, they begin to bring back those old brands the way they were from the very beginning. And this generation, it brings this communication between this generation and that generation. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to, the picture I'm painting
Absolutely.
here. Go,
Yeah.
give it
So
a go.
yeah, I totally agree with you. Some people, I mean, you have conversations with some psychologists, and they say, you know what, the more things change, the more things
The
remain the
more they
same.
remain the same.
Yeah, because people have that strong nostalgia effect, So, I mean, I'm from a generation. I don't know if I say this, I'm going to be giving out maybe around the time frame that I was born. And for a lady, you
Mhm.
never really tell your age. It's not. But I remember when we used to listen to the 8 tracker. That was
Yeah,
even before you had to go into this the CDs were innovation, before
I know.
you had the 8 tracker, then you had the Betamax, if I can recall the name that my
Yeah,
mom had.
Betamax, Betamax.
Then you
Yes,
had the
to
VH
the
the
VHS
VHS, then you
for
had the
videos.
tapes and all of those things. You have videos, then you now move to
Yeah.
CDs. CDs was big. Then you had DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't even have any of those things anymore. If you want to
Now
watch a
it's
video
now
movie,
it's Bluetooth, and all of that.
Bluetooth, you go get a USB or whatever it is to get your movies and everything. And I mean, for me personally, um, those other forms gave you a sense of ownership of those
Mm-hmm.
products.
Yeah.
You could go back. So, for instance, I have a DVD. I have a good old fashioned DVD player, and once in a while, I will crank out my series of The Godfather and watch the
Mm,
3 episodes. So I will crank out my Fair Lady and watch it, or I'll
mm,
crank out Sound of Music, and it's mine.
mm.
And even for my
Yeah.
CDs, I recall I have my Lauryn Hill CD. I mean, anytime I
Oh,
travel outside the country, that's the
you
first thing I
do.
buy, my Lauryn Hill CD, of course. My Michael Jackson. I have all of them, but I have ownership of them. But
Yeah.
now everything is online, everything is streamed, everything is. You don't have. I believe I said so. If someone steals my phone, then all my music goes.
Mm-hmm.
All of those, or maybe they'll say I store it on the iCloud or whatever. But I
And
don't have. I
iCloud.
really don't own those things. And again, one thing that irks me is I always feel why when I'm listening to my favorite musician, why does that have to be tracked by somebody else to the extent that you can now know my preferences and
Yeah.
send those preferences to me? Why does what I like have to be fed into an
It's like
algorithm?
you feel like your privacy is should I
Yeah,
say
why do
hampered
you have
with.
to be part of your I'm listening to my music. That should be something private between me and I
Mm-hmm.
pay the artist, buy their CD, and I
Yeah.
experience whatever I want to experience for years on end. But with the streaming, everything is so fast. So yes, there is a market. I say all of this to say there's a market for nostalgia. You know,
Mm.
sure that if I had an
Take,
opportunity to go watch an old
take that again. Take that again. There's a market
for nostalgia, for the
so put a
things that
price. Can you put a price on it?
I mean, how can I'm not sure that you can put a
Look,
price on it, but it
it's
takes you back
premium.
to a
That's
time where your
it's
memories were yours,
yeah.
where you could experience community. So, for instance, in those days, if you had your VHS or whatever it is, all of you were watching that program together.
Mm,
But
yeah.
now, if 5 people are sitting down in the room, they cannot be watching 5 different things.
Mm-hmm. With all
Even just
holding
that
five
sense
different devices.
devices, even that just sense of quietness to experience whatever is going on seems to be lost. Now, in terms of communications, it helps. Well, it helps that now you have to segment. You have
Mm,
to have different kinds of approaches to different demographics and different people that brings
yeah.
about different kinds of programming and everything, which is why when you
Mm,
go online, like you mentioned YouTube, you go to YouTube and instead of you getting one choice, you have like 50 different choices. You have the opportunity
yeah.
to download, you have the opportunity to do this, you can go live. There's so much that you can do. Now,
Yeah.
even in all of that so muchness, you just want to sense that things can just be simple, which is why I say there's a market for nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
Are just generally so distracted by the amount of information that they can consume to the extent that now the niche market has a lot more draw and
Mm,
has become luxury to the
yeah.
point that you can attract a premium to
Yeah.
experience something that you experienced when you were a child just because it's so niche
Yeah.
now. So there is a
Now,
market for that. I mean, a few things don't change,
yeah.
like art and all of those things. The older it is, the more uh, better in terms of
Better.
how you can cost it or how it is perceived. So I think there is generally a market for nostalgia because people
That
generally,
that
yeah,
strikes a chord for me. Part of my processing today before coming on this with you was we now have a market for remixing of so many things in the space of creativity. Now you find out that a good number of our artists out there remix a lot of these songs. So in the market for nostalgia, you come to see those of us who, quote and unquote, the VHS, the DVD, the cassette player, 8 deck, and all of that. You hear certain songs and you just smile. And it's like, that's a remix of that song. That's a remix of that song. Let me give you an example from the church. I hear Moses Blees and his team remix the I Have a Very Big God, you know. And I see them sing it and I laugh. I say, that's not the original song. The original song is I have a very big God, though. He is always by my side. A very big God, though. By my side, by my side. That's the original. But when I hear them sing that, a good number of us who grew up on that, we just smile and we get into it. So the market for nostalgia, as the way it is now, is like they are now bringing a fusion to two or three or more generations, having this way of bringing everybody together in the business of remixing music. And that is what I hear you say, the market for nostalgia. Now I think we need to, like, what's the best word to use now, encourage our communication strategies to see how we can lash on this very piece of, you know uh the market for nostalgia. Okay, how do you spend your time? Ivy Clem, how do you spend your time?
Well, I'm in the nostalgia market, so I spend my time on a lot of nostalgic things. I
Go
still love
ahead,
to
share with
read.
us.
Friend, she teases me all the time because I read books. I read paper books. I like the smell of the books when I'm turning it one page to the other. I'm old school
Mm,
like that. And
yeah,
she's
I
like,
like
you can put
that
it on your
too.
phone, you can put it on your tablet, you can put it on this. I'm like, no, nothing is going to change me from reading my good old fashioned books. Um, so I love to read. I'm a music enthusiast, as you may,
Okay.
as I mean, I've mentioned music a few times in this interview, and yeah, I love my music. I like a good conversation. Um, I'm a chill person. I
Hmm.
love communications as a form because I mean, what better thing than knowing how to speak to someone and getting a response from the other person? You know, you said that God
Yeah.
spoke and things began to
Yeah.
happen.
Happen.
And the whole thing about the whole Bible is a series of stories that
Yeah.
people tell, that we told. So I
Mm.
think that communications is a gift that God has given us. I think yes, the animals and other they communicate in their own way, but I'm not sure. I think that humans are the only people that communicate the way we do
We
in
speak.
terms of speech, talking to one another, understanding.
Hmm.
Yes, emotions and everything. One word can cause a war. Words also can be the start of the greatest love of all. So
Mm.
I think that communications is just I'm a student of communication, so generally those are the things that drive me on a day-to-day basis.
Beautiful. Guys, we've been discussing with Ivy Clem, a communication strategist. She's an expert in that field, 20 years experience. And you will agree with me, she has dished out so much on this show. One thing I would not forget in a hurry is that market for nostalgia. So we
Yeah.
can all dive into it and get our portion of it. Yes. All right. So what's your plan for 2024? I want to believe you have something cooking out there. I saw your piece talking about you want to talk about more of Nigeria this 2024. In addition to what you have as a plan, can you share with us why Nigeria? Why do you want to talk about Nigeria?
Yeah, because Nigeria gets such a bad rep, doesn't it? You know.
Mm,
Um Go to any cluster of people speaking about Nigeria, generally chances are everyone is going to say something negative about the country.
Mm.
And the only difference, I mean, everything that happens in Nigeria happens in other countries. There's unemployment, there is decay, there is all kinds of things happening in every other country. But generally, they put their best foot forward.
Mm.
Um, we as a people, we always want to be the most realistic or realists.
Mm.
Meanwhile, other members of other countries are not as realistic about their own experiences.
Mm.
Um, so I have said, I mean, yes, I do not deny that there are many things wrong with the country, and we have many challenges. But
Yeah.
there's also for every one story that is bad, there are 50,000 that are good.
The,
And I will be telling part. I'll be one of those people that tells the 50,000 stories that are good. So I've
mm-hmm.
told people when they're speaking with me, when there's gonna be no insults about Nigeria anywhere in
Mm.
any of my communications. I will try my
Yeah.
best not to do that. We will listen to
Yeah.
the news. We will, decipher everything that is happening. We shall talk intelligently, but we shall
Mm-hmm.
not castigate, abuse, demean, or make it seem as if any other country is better than Nigeria. They may have
Yeah.
structures, they may have things that are good, but their own histories
Yeah.
are not 100% kosher or
Mm.
blessed, just like
Mm.
ours.
Mm-hmm.
There have been wars, all kinds of things that they have done to get to where they are that
Mm-hmm.
we haven't done yet.
Yeah.
So even though we talk about the realism of what's going on in the country, we also have to talk about the positives as well. I also
Yeah.
believe that a lot of our stories are not being told.
Mm-hmm.
Just today, I was watching they say the Oscar nominations for the Academy Awards are going to be coming up. Is it today or tomorrow, early in the morning? And for the best picture nomination is going to be 10 movies,
Mm.
which they did after there was so much talk about inclusivity and drama and everything. So they've now made it 10, and these movies will be globally recognized because it is on this great, magnificent stage, which is the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling stories, different
Yeah.
stories, mostly stories about things that happen within their own environment.
Yeah.
For us in Nigeria, where and it's a myriad sense of stories. They'll talk about the Native Americans, they'll talk about this, they'll
Mm.
talk about whatever.
Yeah.
Where are our Nigerian stories? Where are they really?
Mm.
Especially about the middle class. If it's not, where are the? We have so many stories to tell.
We do.
Um, so that is my own thing. I don't have for now. I don't have the platform to start making movies, and maybe I will. Maybe we can talk and we can start doing movies about the
Yeah.
time when we watched NTA, and now we've moved up until watching, all the distraction that is. But where are
Mm-hmm.
those stories? The stories don't always have to be epic stories. It can be simple
Yeah.
stories.
Simple.
So that's where I'm at in my
Okay.
own
Beautiful.
plan in terms of talking about Nigeria. I'm not going to
Beautiful.
deny the reality, but
Mm-hmm.
I do say that there are other stories we could tell
Yeah.
that will show ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and our country in a positive light. Because I keep on
Yeah.
saying, I mean, I'm a Christian, and I know that you're a Christian also.
Yeah.
You keep on saying something about a certain place, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, it is.
Chances are you'll find out people from other countries, you'll say that this is where dreams are made of, and
Yeah.
that becomes people's reality.
Yeah.
They say that we do the best of this, and that becomes their reality.
Yeah.
For us in Nigeria, what do we say about our country?
Mm. Mm.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, you
Yeah.
know.
I love that. I love that, telling the stories about your country, telling the story about your neighborhood. Somebody asked me the other day, and it's like, do we have a Nigerian dream? Like you hear the American dream. I want to live the American dream. I want a piece of the American dream. Do we have the Nigerian dream? And I paused for a minute and I couldn't quite give the person an answer because I believe we do, but it's how to craft that story. Sometime I think last year, I came upon this report. They were talking about the most praying nations in the world and poverty capital and blah blah blah. Obviously, Nigeria and Afghanistan made the list as per the top two countries that prayed the most, and they made all sorts of analysis and blah blah blah. But what caught my attention was when they came to the COVID year, the two nations that were not adversely impacted by the COVID was Nigeria and Afghanistan. And I said, okay, hold a minute. We're praying people. We are praying people. COVID could not break through. The US had their issues, Europe had their issues, but Nigeria did not. That is a story. And if you go through the COVID year, you look at how we lived, we were more communal. We went into that, you know, storytelling times like folklores, stories under the moonlight, and all of that. I spent more time with my children singing songs that my mother sang to me. And I said to myself, okay, can we not craft something after this to tell the world our story? We might be broken, but we're not out. We might have our challenges, but hello, we are champions. We have count the first 10 black people on earth. First 10. Just one, two, three, four, five. Before you get to the 10th person, you see four Nigerians. It speaks volume. Recently, a Nigerian built a business that BlackRock bought over for $12.9 billion. He's a Nigerian. Ogunlese, I think that's his name. So we have a lot to create. But like you said, we are the ones, so to say, talking down on ourselves. Nobody will sell your market like you. Nobody will do that. And I think I mean, it's us that will do that. And I take that challenge, starting to create movies telling the stories of Nigeria. And I believe Ivy Clem would give, she will lend a voice and a hand when it comes to crafting the script.
I agree.
Go
I
on.
mean, come on, think about it when you're growing up. I mean, you watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You watch The Godfather.
Yes.
You watch
Yeah.
movies. That's how you thought about. You knew the Yankees. You knew the Yanks
Mm.
about
Yes.
the American Cowboys. They told their stories. They put it. They pushed
Yeah.
it out internationally, and
Yeah.
you began to feel like you were living in those countries, and
Hmm.
it began to wake up the interest in you to go to those countries. You'll say we're
Yeah.
going to. I mean, now that we have a king, if there's a king now in England, but I mean, everybody will say I want to go to England to go see the Queen
To
in
see
those
the
days,
queen.
but
Yeah.
because it's what we had been shown, is what we had been shown. But what are we showing when we
Mm.
talk about Nigeria? So there was something you mentioned earlier that is so important when you said that the person asked, "What is the Nigerian dream?" and you couldn't give him a straight answer.
Yeah.
Now, now that's the job of a strategic communications person. You
Hmm.
craft the message.
Yeah.
You're very strategic about it
Yeah.
because they were strategic about it. It wasn't a mistake that you heard that America is the land of dreams and opportunities. Somebody
Yeah.
crafted that message and began to push it, and
Somebody did.
it became a holistic messaging for the whole country that
Yeah.
permeated every aspect of their lives, and it
Mm.
has transformed their economy.
Yeah.
Now, people always tell me that like Ivy, if you get go into government, where do you want to work or whatever? I don't particularly care about the Ministry of Petroleum or all those ones. Just give me the Ministry of Information and National Orientation. That's the only ministry that I want because
Hmm.
that's the ministry that will allow me to craft the messaging for our country. That will be
Yeah.
able to say, okay, let's tell this story about Nigeria. We're not telling any cohesive story about the country, and that's on
Mm.
us as a
Mm.
nation. That is what those
Mm.
ministries are doing. The,
Yeah.
I remember what I mean, but they used to do it before when we were growing up. We used to have just when it was just the radio, they would
Hmm.
always push out positive stories about Nigeria.
Not
In
just the radio, not just the radio, even on television. If you remember when we used to have, is it Nefertable? I've forgotten how they crafted it, where they bring different stories from all the cultures around Nigeria. You do a movie about it. They vote for it and they call up the winner or something. I remember
absolutely,
then. Yeah, I remember then we used to get excited when we hear that that competition is around the corner. You have a lot of movie directors and producers and everything working on traditional stories. That will get even our parents like nostalgic, like how did they get this particular piece and all of that. So I remember those days, but somehow we left them
That
somewhere.
hasn't been happening now. Remember, if you recall, in the 80s, there was the campaign when just then it wasn't even, we call it Jackpa now in Nigeria, and anybody outside the country means
Andrew,
when you
I'm
leave.
checking out.
Yes, but they did something to counter it.
Yeah, they
It
did.
stopped so many people from
Mm-hmm.
leaving.
Yeah,
They did something to counter it because they used to call it brain drain in those days.
in those
Brain
days,
drain.
yeah, brain drain, yeah,
Now we have something that like a tsunami of people that are
yeah,
leaving the country to the
true.
shores. Young people, every young person, every parent that I know, their preference is for their child or daughter to school abroad.
Canada,
Even with
the
with
cold,
the naira exchange rate, there
they
is
don't
no
care.
one. I mean, of a certain age range who has children of a certain age that if you ask them, what is your preference in terms of where your children will go to school? 10 out of 10, maybe, I mean,
Yeah,
like, you can't be totalitarian, but at least 9 out of 10 would say that they're working to ensure that their children can leave the shores of Nigeria.
you can say 10 out of 10 comfortably. I tell
Now,
you
do
for
you know,
free.
meanwhile, all those parents that are having this conversation, all schooled in public schools in Nigeria,
Absolutely,
because when we're growing up, there are no private schools,
none,
none.
none.
So you can just, where I'm saying is, you can imagine the amount of young people that are
Yeah,
leaving the country without
yeah.
any reason to come back.
Mm.
The innovation, the vibrancy, the
Mm-hmm.
youth, the
Mm-hmm.
connections, the partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
the stakeholders are
Mm-hmm.
going somewhere else. And there is
Yeah,
no national counter messaging that deals with that. To me,
yeah,
that is personally shocking as a communications person.
yeah.
Because if you're telling, it's what people hear all the time. Because
Yep.
what is the greatest way of marketing? No matter how people do it, most of it is still word of mouth.
Word of mouth. True.
So we are having a conversation or whatever it is. I'm like, oh, how's your kids? Oh, they're fine. I just took them to Canada the other day. Oh, really? Canada? Oh,
Mm.
really? Then we start
Mm.
having that conversation. Then I start thinking, then why don't I send my kids over to Canada
Yeah.
or to wherever? So
Mm-hmm.
it's still word of mouth. So we are marketing the education system in other
Yeah.
countries. And
True.
there is no counter from our federal government, state, or local, or national agencies for information to counter that messaging, to tell
Mm.
people that there is hope for the youth here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, that, like I said, to me, that is shocking that nobody is doing that. I mean, I don't know.
Mm. Well, let me tell you, if you have the thought, then it means something is about to happen. So prepare yourself because being around this space for a while, I can tell you for free how it works. The minute those thoughts start coming, it's all about time. You see similar minds, and there's this resonance, and we begin to flow. But I am optimistic. I am. And that's why somehow it just clicked within me to get Ivy to come on the Word Cafe to talk about communication. And guys, you will agree with me, we've been having an amazing time. But like, time is not our friend. When we get into talking and it becomes all exciting and you look at the time, it's like, wow, we've been here for this long. That's because when you do, or when you're doing what you enjoy, time ceases to exist. But we need to respect time. Before I let her go, one last thing from Ivy to my audience about communication.
Well, communications is like air that we breathe.
Hmm.
And the beautiful thing is that some people say you don't own. The beautiful thing about communications is that there's verbal and there's non-verbal.
Mm,
So some people say, well, I can't speak, or I can't see, or I can't hear. But there is a way that humans have been infused by our creator to be able to
hmm.
get our thoughts and our dreams, our hopes and aspirations from one person to another. And
Mm,
I think it's one of the most beautiful things. So do learn how to communicate. If you want to
mm,
learn more about communications, you can reach me
yeah.
on my social media. on all
Yes. Where do we
platforms.
catch you? Where do we catch you? Where do we catch you?
Instagram,
Finish your
Ivy
saying.
Clem one. I always say
Okay.
because I am. If you look at my bio, it says the one and only. So Ivy Clem one, and I
Okay.
always say that Ivy Clem. I mean, it's 7 letters. Ivy Clem, CLEM.
Mm,
So reach me
hmm.
if you do that. If you put that, it will come up on all of the channels. And let's talk about communications. Let me teach you, coach you how to be a better presenter, how to present yourself better, how to have confidence,
Hmm.
and how to and the importance of strategic communications and how it can transform your organization, your life, and this
Amazing.
country. So anybody,
Amazing.
I'm up for Minister of Information and National Orientation. If they're looking for that person, Adri, I'm right here.
All right, guys, you heard it from the one and only Ivy Clem. She's given herself, there. So, guys, make contact with her. You won't regret it. I remember the first time I called her for just to collaborate, and I mean I enjoyed myself, and she did a marvelous job. Go check that out on my YouTube channel. You see it, one of my very early videos I did. The word as in the color of words. After I did a cocktail of words, the color of words, Ivy was one of the people that did the reading and all of that. She is an amazing person. You will agree with me. All right, guys. Well, I've been having an amazing time. I know you two have been, but I just have to let her go. But let me tell you this for free. She'll be back in this space, to share with us her encounter with that space called national orientation and information and all of that. And it's going to be on a
Fingers
positive,
crossed. Fingers crossed.
yes,
Fingers crossed.
on a positive note. All right, guys. Till I come your way again. Bye for now. Ivy, thank you. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.